Hey, hello Ninthers, and good morning, good afternoon, and a very good evening, based on the time in which you'll be watching this video. Hoping you all are doing well, doing fine, and that you all are staying happy. We are about to finish off with this chapter, and the last part which is left, this Delhi Sultanate. The last part is the administration of the Sultanate. What does actually administration mean? Administration means to administer. Administer means to rule, so as to look out after the kingdom, so as to look out of the welfare of the kingdom, and so as to make the rules, laws, regulations, and also so as to execute those rules, laws, and regulations. Now, when we talk of India, India is a democratic state. There are other different kinds of, there are monarchies, there are theocracies. So this Delhi Sultanate was a theocracy. What is a theocracy? Theocracy means ruling in the name of God. So a theocratic state is a state in which the king or the queen, the ruler, emperor, sultan, whoever it is, they say that they are representatives of God, and that they are ruling in the name of God, and that they are the divine, or they are somewhat of a figure of God on earth. So that is a theocratic state. Now, previously, during those times, earlier times, this kind of a state was needed. Why was it needed? Because even the mere mention of the name of God brought some kind of a fear into the minds of the people, and that is why the people would not want to revolt, or would not want to go against the king or the ruler. That is why, which is why the kings or the rulers, they ruled in the name of God. So this was a theocratic state, and Islam was the state religion. Next, the Sultan and the central administration. Well, the Sultan of Delhi was an unlimited despot. An unlimited despot means he was the unlimited ruler. He had all the power of the state within entrusted upon himself. He was the chief executive of the state. What it means actually is that he was the prime executioner of all the laws and the rules and regulations of the state, or of the Sultanate. He was also the highest judicial authority. So, like we have in today's India, we have the powers are divided. The chief executive is the prime minister, and then we have the highest judicial authority is the Supreme Court. But back then it was all the powers, and he was in the Sultan, or the Sultan had all the powers. So he was the chief executive of the state also, which is similar to that of today's prime minister. He was also the highest judicial authority. That means he was also similar to that of today's Supreme Court. And the Sultan was the commander-in-chief of the army. So he was also the head of the army. So that today it is the general, or it is the army, navy, or the air force. We have the admiral, general, or the commodore. But previously it was the Sultan who was the all-in-all ruler of the army too. He was the chief of the army. So his powers are very wide, as you can see. He was controlling the law, rules, regulation, executive. He was controlling the judiciary, and he was also controlling the army. His powers were very wide. He was responsible for the safety and security of the state. There was no constitutional method to remove a king from the throne. So there was no constitution of any kind. There was no parliament of any kind actually. So this king, he was ruling in the name of God, and it was thought that people used to think that the king was blessed by God himself, and that his successors will also be representatives of God. Now, he could be removed only by a successful revolt, which meant a civil war. Next comes the ministers. The Sultan, well, he could not do everything on his own. The final power rested on him. The final decision was his. But then he had other helping hands too. The highest officer in the government was the Wazir, that is the chief minister. Other key functionaries and ministers with the Diwan. Diwan is the finance minister, and we'll be coming across this term Diwan later on also. And if you read Indian history properly, you will get this term Diwan, Diwani rights. That is the tax revenue. It is Diwan is related to the tax and the revenue system. Then we have the Qazi, the chief judge. Then the Ares, the army minister. The special responsibility of the army minister was to recruit, equip, and pay the soldiers. So he was the one, the Ares, he was the one who was recruiting. Recruiting means bringing into service, giving jobs to the people in the army, To equip the army, that is to give arms, ammunitions, guns, weapons to the army, and also to pay the soldiers. Alauddin Khilji introduced the system of branding the horses so that the soldiers did not maintain poor quality of horses. It means actually is that what used to happen was that Alauddin Khilji brought in superior quality of horses for his army. Most of the horses were Arabian horses. So some of the soldiers, what they used to do was that in so as to earn a little extra money, they used to sell this horse, Arabian horse, the good quality horse, to a horse dealer, and buy a lower quality, inferior horse, Indian bred horse, and keep it with himself. So that brought down the efficiency of the army, which is why Alauddin Khilji started branding of the horses. Branding means so as to give some kind of a labeling, and that would help in identification of the horses, and also this corruption and the way the people used to sell those horses, that will also not happen. Sultan also maintained a large number of elephants trained for war purposes. Next comes the provincial administration. So that was the central administration. Next comes the provincial administration. In today's date also we have the center, and the center then is divided into the states, and then we have in the states we have the districts and the subdivisions. So similarly we had the provincial administration. Provinces were similar to today's states. So these provinces were placed in the charge of governors called the Naib Sultans. So today we have chief ministers. Back then it was the governors, and those governors were called Naib Sultans. So you will not be using this term governor, you will be using the term Naib Sultan whenever you are writing in or whenever you are writing something relating to this chapter, the Delhi Sultanate. The most important provinces under the Khaljis and the Tughlaqs were those of Jaunpur, that is in Uttar Pradesh, Malwa, that is somewhere in the having the areas of Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Khandesh is in Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Bengal, and the Dakhin, that is the Deccan. The governors were required to maintain a powerful army and provide military aid to the Sultan in times of war. So the governor was maintaining an army, and if there was any kind of a war, the governor will be supplying those armies to the center so as to help the Sultan in fighting his war. And in each province there was a regular department for the collection of land revenue and other taxes. Next comes the local administration, another important part. The provinces were divided into smaller units of administration called the shiks, each under a shikdar. Each shik was divided into a number of parganas, and which was again divided into tehsils, that is subdivisions. The smallest unit was the village, and each village had the revenue officer, that was the patwari. So we'll keep it up to this. Stay happy, take care, and well, stay safe. Thank you.